Are you ready to become awesomer? Hello, everyone. My name is Umar. I'm your host on the No Limit Selling podcast, where industry leaders share their tips, strategy, and advice on how you can become better, stronger, faster. Just before we get started, I've got a question for you. Do you have a negative voice inside your head? We all do, right? I'm going to help you remove that voice in under 30 days guaranteed. Not only remove it, but transform it. So instead of the voice that sabotages you, there's one that propels you to much higher levels of performance and success. There's a link in the show notes. Click on it to find out more. All right, let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the No Limit Selling podcast. Today we have Jonathan Tager with us today. He's a Montreal boy in New York City and a realtor, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, of course. I haven't been called a Montreal boy in a long time, so that's special.
So we actually met in Manhattan earlier on in the week for the first time at a coffee shop, which was like a kick-ass amazing coffee shop, by the way. It's probably one of the best coffees I've had in a long time.
I agree. It was fantastic. Just I have to correct you. We were in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. That's Brooklyn.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
He's a realtor. He can't help it. And
I can't help it. I can't allow that mistake.
So one of the things we were chatting about was you doing stand-up before you started being a realtor. And one of the things we thought might be an interesting conversation is how stand-up relates to real estate. Because to get ready to go on stage, it takes a lot of preparation and a lot of sacrifice to get there. So why don't we kick off the show with that? How does stand-up comedy relate to being a realtor?
That's funny. You have to have a keen sense of humor to be in real estate. I promise you that. But no, I mean, in all seriousness, the reality is, look, you're always selling yourself. I think, in no matter what, right? You're always selling yourself, whether you're selling cars, whether you're selling real estate, whether you're a comedian, right? I'm selling myself as a comedian because I'm up there, and if you don't like me, you're not laughing at me. That's just the reality. And you know what? Another reality is, if you don't like me, you're not buying a house from me. Yeah. So I feel, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
To what you were saying, that authenticity piece is that sometimes I watch these shows where they're like The Voice or whatever. And one of the things I often hear them say is, if you can't sing about a song if you're not feeling that emotion. So if there's deep sadness in the lyrics and you're not feeling it, you're faking it, it's not going to come through. So you need to be authentic. And I think stand-up, by its very definition, is people that are truly great is that they're being themselves in the most vulnerable way. And it's that connection, artist or person on stage with the audience, that creates the laughter, that creates the trust. Because I can tell jokes and not be me and be a facsimile of me, but that runs out pretty quickly. And the same thing when you're selling something, especially real estate, is if you're like, hi, my name is Jonathan, I'm going to sell you this. And then you're like, got this facade up. People see through that. They don't want that. They want to have that real person connecting with them. Either they're going to love you or not. But if they love you, they'll go the distance.
Well, here, it's funny you say that, Umar, because really here's the truth, right? I've been doing this 20 years, almost 20 years. I've sold the apartment. I've convinced someone to buy either an apartment or anything one time in 20 years, right? I truly talked someone into buying an apartment. It was a young man, and it was during the first downfall or the down cycle, and he was getting an apartment for pennies on the dollars. And I truly talked him in the day before we were going to close. He was changing his mind. And I'm like, you are making a huge mistake. You've got to buy this apartment. It's the bottom of the market. I promise you, there's only, the value of this apartment can only go up, right? It's like, this apartment was $600,000, 2 years ago. Now it's $300,000. Like, I promise you, it's going to be worth $600,000 and then some in a few years. Anyway, of course, the apartment went up. The guy doubled his money and God knows how long. And anyway, that was the only time I've ever talked someone into buying an apartment or a property. You're never going to talk someone into buying a property they don't want. If someone walks into a house or whatnot, and they're just like, oh, this isn't for me. There's 0 out of 1,000 times are you going to convince that person to buy the property. So when real estate brokers are selling properties and like, oh yeah, hey, look at the kitchen. Oh, look at this stone. Wow, here, touch it. Put your hand on it. When they do silly things like that, it just shows how fake and how not honest they are in general, and it's sort of a disaster to watch. So I think with comedy, it's the same thing, right? You gotta get up there and be yourself. What something I might say something that's hilarious, and you could say the exact same thing, and no one's gonna laugh, right? Because we're
Yep.
just different people, and that's what it is. So I think real estate's the exact same way, right? Where I could tell you something about a house where a similar or a different broker, would say something, and it just comes off completely fake and not real.
And I
So
think intent is so important as well. It's your intent when you're on stage. If the intent is to make people laugh, that's certainly a worthy intent. If the intent is I want to connect with these people in the audience, and the byproduct is going to be laughter, it's all about that connection. It'll have a different feel to the show than the other. Or if the intent is not to suck. So I think in real estate as well, if the intent is I want you guys to find a home that you guys are going to be proud of, that your family's going to grow up in. That's one thing. If my intent is to sell you something so I make a commission, people also pick that up as well.
100%, 100%. It's look, I have the luxury of working in New York City, right? Where there's no, the hard part is getting listings, right? So I've always tried to work the listing. When I get listings, I mean, I sell every listing I have, right? So it's very rarely do I get a listing that I just can't sell. Usually it's because just the sellers are, what's the word? They're not reasonable in their
Right.
price or whatnot. They're just not reasonable. But it's when I have a listing, I know I'm going to sell it to someone. So if it's not, buyer A, B, and C, it'll be buyer D, whatever it might be. So I'm not sitting there like, oh, I've got to sell it to this person. And I think, to be honest with you, it's helped me in my career because I listen to people, and I look, if it's not the right apartment or right house for them, I want them to find the right house, and if they want help, I'll gladly work with them on the buyer side. But I don't need to lie to people or to make things up. So, first of all, people aren't really that stupid. It's like, if it's a third floor walk up and you've got someone with kids and they've got small kids and they've got, baby strollers and stuff like that, I look right away and say, guys, you really don't want this apartment. I mean, it's third floor walk up. What are you going to take the stroller up and down those stairs, every day? That's just not reasonable. So I think those are obvious things. And I look, you got to find the right, I guess, the right connection in the people that you work with, or else you're wasting your time.
Brilliant. So let's put you to the test. You've been
Okay.
in the business for a while. Since what year?
2005, 2004, 2004. Yeah, 2004.
So why don't we get 5 ways to generate leads in real estate? Yeah,
All
what's the
right.
first way?
The spokes of the tire. I love that. I love,
Tell me
I've
about
done
that.
coaching and stuff like that. And anyway, they call it the spokes of the tire. You got to have, I think they actually at one point they're like, you have to have seven. I'll take five because seven's a lot, but
Yeah.
and in no particular order. Okay. Is that okay? Can I just throw them
Oh,
as
for
they come
sure.
to
Yeah.
me?
And the motor.
One can be a newsletter. I think a
Yep.
newsletter is key because there's so many systems out there where you can just grab everyone you're in contact with, and you're getting in front of them at least once a month with your newsletter. So
Right.
if you email people once a month with your newsletter, you're
That's
hitting
reasonable.
every very reasonable, right? So let's start with the newsletter. Second, it's pretty obvious nowadays. I hate it, I'll be honest, but at the same time, I try to have fun with it. But social media,
Yep.
um, social media. It's actually interesting. A lot of people that follow me or that I'm connected with on social media, I don't have their email address. So it's just another bunch of people that I can get in front of
Nice.
that way. I started using this new app actually recently. What is it called? God, it's actually pretty funny. It's called HomeBot. Have you heard of that?
No, tell me about it.
It's pretty cool, actually. It basically, you input all your buyers or sellers, and it automatically reaches out to them once a month and tells them about their home's value.
Oh, I
What
love
if
it.
they wanted to refinance? What if they wanted to sell? All these different options for them. And like, let's say, look, most people aren't looking to sell, right? So it just gives them sort of a framework of their options if they did want to sell, if they wanted to refinance, whatever it is. So
Useful stuff.
that's it's great because once you put everyone in there, it's automated, right? So I mean, the newsletter, I actually have to sit, it takes me 20 minutes, right? But I sit and I do that once a month, right? HomeBot is
Just hit go.
automated. Once I put people in there, it's they consistently get emails from the system, and it has me as their real estate broker. So I
Love it.
like the automated stuff is great.
And
I
what's
also
number
use
three?
a CRM, again in no order, because I'm not putting, you got to find what works for you. But I use a CRM. uh, Corcoran has a great, one of the biggest reasons I love being at Corcoran is their back end systems make it so it almost looks like I don't have to work. Like,
Ah,
they,
love
they
it.
know what we're good at, and meaning their agents. So they basically want to give us all the tools to, just focus on connecting with potential clients and potential buyers and sellers, and which is what they do. So the back end is as automated as possible. And our CRM, it's funny, we had a CRM when I joined, it was Contactually, and then Compass bought it. Not to give you so much backstory, but Compass bought it. So then we got rid of Contactually. And it took us, I would say, almost a year to put together a better CRM than Contactually. And
Nice.
it's called Close. I don't know if you've heard of Close, but it's an amazing back end system where literally it just tells me, hey, email this person today, call this
Call this
person today.
person. Yeah, love
It
it.
tells me, yeah, it tells me like what to do almost. It's fantastic. So I'm always in touch with everybody. So I mean, obviously I've got my newsletter sending mass emails, right? But then, this is a more personalized, hey,
Touch.
call
Love
that
it.
guy. Let's have a conversation. Send this email. I can send like you can send 10 people the same email. Let's say I get a property, right? And I'm like, oh, wow, this is a great deal. I think I have some buyers. I can send it to 10 people as opposed to sending it to, 1,000 or,
1,000. Yeah,
and I can
love
write
it.
a specific email and it looks like I'm just emailing them, right? It looks like I'm specifically just emailing that person.
Love it.
Uh,
So
so,
number
so
four. So we've got
CRM,
newsletter,
yeah.
social media, CRM.
Number four, good one, right? Let's keep going. So something like that I do all the time. I think like a big thing that I do, and it's kind of, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I don't look at it as looking for business, but it is really, is taking people to lunch. Obviously I'm not doing it every day. But and truthfully, I look at it as I'm taking my friends to lunch, right? These are people that
Yeah.
I genuinely like. Um, but I've got certain people that I know, they've referred me business in the past, but they're good friends, and it's important to get in front of them and catch up and all that stuff. So
So I
I
like
would say,
that. And Ron Howard and his partner Brian Glazier. Brian actually wrote a book about when he came to Hollywood. He started taking people out for lunches, like really
Really?
smart people, just to pick their brain over lunch. And he said it was just gave him such an education. And one of the stories he tells is he finally got a lunch with Isaac Asimov,
Isaac
and he
Asimov,
didn't
who's that?
wrote iRobot. He's, sci-fi writer, probably got like 80, 90 books, one of the giants. And he
Yep.
wasn't prepared for the meeting. So the guy stopped the lunch. So I don't have
He
enough
said,
time to waste. You weren't ready for
interesting.
this lunch. So
With
goodbye.
Brian Glazer.
Yeah. And then he went, "Oh
That's
my God, yeah, this was a giant in the industry." And I basically just showed up like wonderstruck. And he was like, because he was getting on years and he's got books to write. He says, I've got books to write. What advice do you give yourself? Write faster. And so anyway, so that lunch thing is so huge. If you can actually just attend someone and just be with them and not, doesn't have to be about business. Like the coffee you and I had, it was like a
yep.
great coffee. It was just two guys talking about life, comedy, real estate, and it was a delightful conversation that I got lots of value out of, and hopefully you got value out of it too.
No, it was fantastic. It really was. I mean, because we had didn't know each other. That was, we met each other at the coffee. And yeah, it was kind of funny because the coffee was like, really, I was like, wow, this is so good. It was such a good
Yeah,
coffee. But yeah, I mean, you know what? Life is especially in the world we're living in now, right? Because we're so, I think I was telling you this at our coffee. Like, I'm so alone a lot of the time, right? And I don't mean that in like a depressing way. I mean, but it can be. Honestly, some days I'm a little depressed because I'm either in my car driving around, going, even if I have a busy day and I have two appointments, right? That's a busy day. Um, Other than those two appointments, I'm in my car by myself or I'm doing computer work, in my home office. I'm not around, I don't have that in the office surrounded by activity
right.
on a consistent basis. So it's nice to sort of, just meet up with people and like humanize the business or humanize really life, right? It's
Life,
not,
absolutely.
not every meeting needs to be, am I going to make money from this?
Yeah, the
It's
quality,
nice.
quality of your life, my life, is the quality of our relationships.
Absolutely.
And like you could be earning tons of dough, and if you don't have anybody to share it with, then what's the point? And
Absolutely.
so we've got newsletter, social media, CRM, doing lunches. Number five, bringing it home. What's the fifth thing to
Number
generate leads?
five. I'm trying to think like what I tend, and sometimes they change because I have like a few things that are changing, right? Because I try to see what's working, and I try to do where, obviously I don't want to do things, and after like a little while you get no return. You're like, well, why am I doing this? This doesn't make sense, right? It
Right.
doesn't feel right. But I think a big thing is reaching out to people you don't know, because it's one thing to be in contact with people you do know on a consistent basis, but getting people. Well, before I even say that, obviously who you don't know, and you can reach out to buyers, sellers, anybody, right? Because in real estate, you don't have to be a buyer or a seller. You could be a renter. You could be just any Joe Schmo who has a friend who wants to sell their apartment. So it doesn't matter. But I will say, so reaching out to people you don't know. But with that said, obviously, you need to keep current, and I still send out print advertising. I don't send out a mass amount of print advertising, but I do. I think it's important because other agents do too. And I think it's important to kind of, and truthfully, every now and then you got to be consistent with print advertising, but
Right.
every now and then you send something out and you get a random call from someone, and there's a listing for you.
Love that. And I'm going to add one from our conversation at the coffee shop.
Yeah,
We talked about mitzvahs. I think if you're feeling down or you just want just help someone, just helping another human
Absolutely.
being changes your mood. And it's also a good way to just build relationships that will eventually lead to business. And it may not be from that person, but their crazy brother in law who's selling a house. Hey, Dr. Jonathan. So, yeah,
100%.
I think it's helping people is the most selfish thing to do because it makes you feel good. And I'll tell you my favorite quote, Jonathan. You may wish to write this down.
Sure.
I'm not sure who said this, somebody genius. And it went something like this: the love I give you is secondhand. I got to feel it first.
The love I give you secondhand.
I got to feel
I
it
have to
first.
feel it. I have to feel it first. I
And
like
when I
that.
heard that, it was like, wow, that's like so
Who said
amazing.
that? You know?
I don't know. We're just going to make it sound more legit and say it was Gandhi, but it wasn't
I was
Gandhi.
gonna say some homeless guy, and after our coffee, we might arrest
Yeah,
some
could have been. All
guy
right,
in the
brilliant,
corner.
Jonathan. So, two things before we part company. Number one, what brings you joy in your work?
What brings me joy in my work? I think helping, like, okay, like right now I'm selling a house for like the nicest people in the world, right? I'm still waiting for like, the nasty to come out, because it's like, whenever you have, with my experience, whenever you have someone that's like the perfect and ideal client, something really crazy happens at some point and they turn nasty. So I'm
Mm.
hoping that doesn't happen, and we're closing next week. But to date, they've been like the nicest people in the world. They inherited their family house and they're selling it. And we got, they basically were like, you tell us what to do and we'll do it. They've listened to me, and I haven't had a fight on anything. And we sold over ask all cash. So, like, that just shows when you let people who are good at their jobs do their jobs, right? They're going to do a good job, right? But what makes me happy is they're the nicest people in the world. Nobody deserves the windfall of cash they're about to get more. I mean, they've lived their whole lives. They're New York NYPD police sergeant. We're retired now, but protecting New York City, all that good stuff. And I just want them to. It makes me so happy to help them and to have done a good job for them.
Ah, love
So
that.
that for me is don't get me wrong, I want my commission check, but I also, it makes it that much sweeter knowing that they're happy, they couldn't be happier,
Good things
and
happen to good
that I
people.
did it.
Love it.
Exactly. I mean, it's just great.
So, what's one mind hack, one technique that you use to be more productive, more efficient? Like, what's one
One
mind hack you'd like
mind
to share
hack.
with your listeners? Yeah.
I mean, the first thing that probably comes to mind, because we spoke about it the other day. So I think it's, I used to have my own brokerage, so I even trained. I literally would take new agents and I would like make them watch this YouTube on it. I don't think a lot of people even are aware of it, but the 80-20 rule.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it's so key, especially in real estate where you're your own boss. So I mean, there's so many days where you're like, oh, I got so much going on, and we're sitting there focusing on the 80% that really doesn't matter if we do it or not. So I try to focus on my 20% that actually, earns my income, right? So the 20% where I see results and that do matter. Like if I do anything today, it's that 20%, because that 20%, like, reaching out, going through my contacts, picking up the phone, and calling, even if it's calling one person a day, right? If I call one person a day in a work week, that's five people, right? I could get a
Oh, yeah.
referral from one of those five. So if you do anything, that should be one of them. If I read a post about how to design your home for the holidays on Facebook that gets no traction, I don't think that really matters. So I think the 80-20 rule is super important. And if anyone is listening there right now and doesn't know what the 80-20 rule is, I highly urge you to go onto YouTube and type in 80-20 rule. And if you do anything today, I think that'll be the most
Love
important
it.
thing you did today.
There was this guy, I forget the name of the guy. He was using the 80-20 rule, but in a different way. And it was all about online, selling things online like courses and coaching. The guy was saying if you have 1,000 people that are buying your program for $50, the 80-20 rule says that 200 of them would be willing to pay $500 for something more value add. And out of those 200 people, there are 20 people that are willing to pay $5,000 for that. So they actually use pricing with the 80-20 rule. And I thought that was actually a genius way of using that rule in a slightly different way. Jonathan, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. Really appreciated the conversation, and I'm looking forward to our next conversation.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I appreciate it. Great meeting you. And, again, thanks so much.
If you enjoyed this episode, please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. And if you're looking for more tools, go to my website at nolimitselling.com. I've got a free mind training course there that's going to teach you some insights from the world of neuro-linguistic programming, and that is the fastest way to get better results.